Well, I guess it's safe to say it's front end time on our Maria. We got an entire front end's worth of Mevo Tech Supremes. I haven't personally used them, but I've decided to swap to them for several reasons. But I got a decent price on a full kit for the front end. When I first bought this truck, I rebuilt the front end on it, but I only did ball joints and the front I-beam bushings and stuff like that. I didn't put tie rods or coil springs on at the time, so this time around we're going new on all of it. I got both tie rod ends with the adjusting sleeves, and I went with the heavier rating spring, so we'll see how that turns out. This is a crew cab, so I don't know what it would have came with from the factory. Kind of hard telling the difference, but I hope that's going to make a lot of difference on the ride in alignment. And for front tires this go around, I went with Cooper Discoverer Stronghold all-terrains. I'm normally a BF Goodrich person, but I just wanted to try these out for a round. You replace 2 sets of front tires for every 1 set rear on dualies most of the time. So before I come up on my next rear tire change out, I wanted to try these out. I didn't find out till after I had them mounted that there was a lower ply rating, but other than that, they're all completely rated the same as a BF Goodrich. I'm gonna miss my white letters though. I am gonna miss that. But I wanted to try them out. And this is the only way I could justify trying them. Now, I had already removed my tires and wheels to go have the new tires mounted. I ended up taking just the wheels to them, so. Anytime you pull the calipers off of one of these trucks, just go ahead and put these on there. They don't cost that much. Keep that caliper from making racket going down the road. They're usually split after a good amount of time anyway. Tie those up with something. That's why I drive a 1-ton right here. 1 set of brake pad for the last 7 years. Daily driving too. Got our caliper tied up. Not sure if our Bilstein shocks are still any good or not. The boot sure isn't on that one for some reason. But radius arm bushings aren't too bad. But we're already at new tires, so we're going to go ahead and put them on there while we're at it. Same with the I-beam pivot bushings back there. We're already this far. You know, it wouldn't hurt a feller to wash his truck every now and then. I mean, now our wheel bearings are still in really good shape. I do want to repack them here soon, so. But we're a bit on a time crunch on getting this front end done. So our lower ball joints are bad, and our tie rod ends have a little play in them, so we're just putting all new on it. Put this front end on here about 6-7 years ago, something like that. A lot of people make fun of me at work because I use any seas on just about everything. But I put this on 7 years ago, and easy to take off. You can still see the copper anti-seize I put on it. Usually you can tell if I worked on something. It's usually got the copper anti-seize. This is probably one of my favorite front ends for a 2-wheel drive. Pretty dang tough. See if we can do these without a press or anything. Nothing but a brood hammer. I did them in a hydraulic press last time, but I was a bit younger at the time. Nipex, only way to go. I've seen worse, but got my $1 3-foot long pin driver, 3/4 inch bar stock. There we go. What's crazy to me is all that holds this coil spring in is a little sheet metal bracket with a 1/2 inch headed bolt. I think it's technically metric, but these ain't too bad. Pretty easy front end. But all that spring pressure, that's all it takes. Fits in the cup pretty good though. I guess that's mainly what holds it in. Then back here we got an 1/8" nut on the back of this. I guess you call it a control arm. When you hear some high mileage 7.3s running down the road and you hear this washer jangling under here, that's the bushings why. Like I said, these ain't really nothing wrong with them. We had to loosen this tie rod off the power steering box. That way we can get to this bolt. It was in the way. Watch yourself, because all this stuff's heavy. And before you get this far, remember to take your shock bolt out so all this is not hanging by your shock like mine is. Now I remember when I first took the Ford ones out, they was a bear to get out, even worn out, you know. This one come out pretty easy, but when I went to order these, they had different sizes and I didn't know which one to get. So I measured the shank of the bolt, and it apparently they don't measure them the same way I do. So this is what's supposed to be in it, and the bushings I bought's got quite a bit larger hole in it, so that's a bad idea to put those larger bushings in there. I feel safer about putting these back in there for now. I'm going to go ahead and order the correct ones, and I believe I can move the suspension enough just to get a new one of these back in when they come in. So we're on a time crunch right now, so we got to get this done. We got to get a spare truck going, so when something like this happens, we can just drive the other truck. These control arm bushings is pretty simple. I remember as a kid, my dad had like a box of these laying around from all the 1-tons we've had. You'd find them in every box there was. Anyway, you get, usually in these kits, you get 2 washers, 2 tapered bushings, and a plastic, just call it a cone washer, I don't know. So first up's your bigger cup metal washer. Then you got a taller of the 2 rubber bushings. It goes on there first. Then that pokes in the part on your frame. Then on the other side of the frame, this goes first. Then the smaller bushing like that. And then the washer. And then your lock nut. Pretty easy to do. A little bit harder to do under the truck. And I believe you're supposed to use a good suspension grease on these. Now for your spring, I'll put me a wrench on the bottom. You gotta fish all this out. Then you got this plastic washer. I honestly haven't found those to buy. May not be looking hard enough. I was comparing these springs, trying to see what was different. It looks like it's got one more coil in there. It's supposed to be a heavier spring, but I don't know. Only one way to find out. Put our washer back in. Fishing all this through is fun. I like to run it down right next to it and then back off a little bit, because when you go to put this back together, putting the top of this spring back in the hole can be pretty tough sometimes. So you can come in here with your 1/8" wrench and tighten it up later. Tighten it up with a hammer. So first up, you got to put your radius on in. Apply your suspension grease liberally. This one's for you, Mark. And this is where you invite your buddy over for a drink. If you ain't got the buddy or the drink, then you're gonna have to eat extra Wheaties on this one. The best thing to do is have one of them big floor jacks and put right there about under that spring. It'll kind of balance itself. You gotta get your control arm put in first. You can't put the other side in first. You got to put the control arm in first. Now I'm gonna get down there and put the control arm in, and then I'm gonna hang one of the ball joint holes with this strap to help hold it up so that I can get the other end of the I-beam put in. One of these sliding straps works pretty good for this. Just got it picked up. You may not be able to start your bushing, But I at least put a washer and a nut on the very end so that can't slide out on you while you're putting the I-beam bushing up there. All right, so a whole lot of wrestling later, I got that end of the I-beam picked up and a bolt hooked in it, but the bolt won't go into the other side of the bracket. If I remember right, you got to put you a jack under right here to get it to pick up and roll that I-beam a little bit. Not too bad to do. But with the suspension sagged like this, I was able to push that spring over and hold it with my hand to put the keeper on it. Now once you get this far, you can come under here, tighten these up. I like to put the 2-pound hammer torque on it. Click. Now we come back here and get this put into place and a nut put on it. All right, so we put us a jack right there under our I-beam, and once we picked up, it rolled that I-beam back just a little bit and was able to get our bolt in there. That's a pretty good trick for you if you're struggling with that. The first time I did this, I had 2 big yellow Daytona jacks from Harbor Freight. Probably my favorite way to do it if I ain't got a lift or something. That works pretty good. Use some jack stands too. Don't do this. So take your rubber boot off your ball joint. I did this on a press last time. It was way easier. You got to find you a socket or something, piece of pipe or whatever, that'll fit over your shaft without touching the top of it. That way you're hammering on the bottom part. You don't want to hammer on the ball and socket. All right, we got our Allen mites put in there. Make sure you point them which way where you can grease them. I put this one pointing out straight, that way I can turn it to one lock, grease it, and turn it to the other lock and grease it. At least have the intentions to do that anyway. Now all we gotta do is pick that heavy son of a gun up and put it on the I-beam again. But I think that's a project for tomorrow. When you get into that time of the night where you spend more time hunting for your tools, it's time to just go inside. All right, we're out here the next beautiful day. Got the snap rings put on. For some reason on these trucks on the top ball joint, you'll never get that snap ring on there. It ain't machined to where you can, even with it drove all the way down. But you can on the bottom one. Getting all this up there is not fun. That's a little bit much weight with the hub on there to be doing that. And you got your cotter pin. Now up here on the top ball joint, it don't have a nut, but you have the sleeve. That's so you can make adjustments to camber and a little bit on caster. You know, if you turn it, it changes the degrees of either one. We're going to just put this one in here maxed all the way in, because I know how the old tires was running, but that'll at least get us to the alignment shop. Then you have a bolt that goes through here that tightens up, and that's all that holds it in on the top. Surprisingly, I got right down to the bottom of the change out grooves is what I call them, but still had some meat left on my brakes. But I had new ones I had bought 7 years ago, and the old ones was still brand new, so 7 years out of a set of brakes is pretty good. Them big old meaty calipers was quite the pain to compress back. Probably wouldn't hurt to put some new ones on there, to be honest with you. We have to do that on our next repair spree. I usually like check and make sure them ain't sliding out. I forgot to buy some new ones. There we go. Fresh pads and all. Oh yeah, them are still good. Can't hardly move them. Well, there's one side done. Let's clean up a mess and start on the other side. Alright, for our tie rods, we're just gonna set them up against our old ones and see, we gotta adjust it in quite a bit, but match them up pretty good and that'll give you a good starting point. Assuming your alignment wasn't terrible to start with, but that'll get us set up good enough to measure it out under the truck once we put them on. Give us a good starting point. Now, in researching the parts I needed, I found out they had a heavier version and a lighter version of your passenger side tie rod on these year model trucks. I wasn't real sure which one to get, you know, but after a lot of searching, I found out, I believe your crew cabs and ambulance packages came with this heavier one. Now, as far as I know, I mean, the length and everything's the same. It's just a little bit heavier. So as long as you go and buy your inner and outer tie rod and the adjusting sleeve, I don't see why you couldn't upgrade the regular trucks, single cabs and everything, to have the heavier bar. I don't know that it really needs it, but my crew cab came with the heavier one, so I'm putting a heavier one back on it. And then what's interesting is you can get the heavier passenger side because it goes from your steering box to the passenger tire, but the driver's side's still the same, this little old bitty bar. I always thought that was interesting how they got that little one for the drivers. And I don't know why they wouldn't just make them both the same. Now do yourself a favor and really coat these with anti-seize. It'll make it easy to put together and to adjust at some point. Alright, we got our tire rods and everything put back together. We made the length of them the same as the old ones. The old ones had a little bit of slack in them, so we're going to be pretty close on our alignment, but I'm going to take and drive the truck around the yard and let the suspension settle back out. You don't ever want to make any measurements after you've jacked it up, because the suspension is going to be all in the wrong spot till you drive it around. And especially on these twin I-beams, drive straight forward and stop. You don't want to back up and then do a measurement, because for some reason these twin I-beams flex a lot when you reverse. So see some trucks with these twin I-beams that have a lot of miles, they'll have a crazy stent sitting in a parking lot if somebody backed them up. Pretty funny to see. But I'm gonna drive it around the yard and stop straight ahead. Then I'm gonna get somebody to help me measure out for 1/16 toe. And that'll be good enough to get us to the alignment shop. Get everything dialed in the way it's supposed to be. But unfortunately, I'm just gonna have to bid you good luck on finding you an alignment shop. For some reason, that's harder and harder to do now. I've been to several shops the first time I did this front end, and several of them acted like they didn't even want to fool with it. Something interesting about these trucks is they can have some wore out parts and they still drive pretty good. They just get real bad on tire wear after a while. And that's mainly what we're trying to fix this go around, is just tire wear. It was still driving really good. Already got a little mud on them, but I went and had an alignment done, and we've been rocking them for a month and a half now. I've been pretty happy with them so far. It's been pretty dry here for a while, and so I haven't had a whole lot of experience with them as how they do on the road when it's wet. And I won't never be able to see what it is in the ice, but so far I've been pretty happy with them. Only time will tell, you know. I have to put a lot of miles on them before they, hopefully have to put a lot of miles on them before they cause any issues. So, but dry pavement, I've noticed no difference between these and them BF Goodrich's. I kind of like the look of the tread on these too. I just wish there was white wall. I actually was trying to decide between these Coopers and BF Goodrich commercial terrains. I can't remember why I didn't pick them, but I wanted to try these out. Not sure how the traction is in the mud. I don't have a set on the back to see how they sling the mud out or not. They look like they do pretty good. So we're going to pour some miles on it and see how they hold up. I hope to gather me up a Dana 60 to put under the front end here. I really don't want to have to rebuild these twin I-beams again. Hope to have a 60 under it before that time. I was a bit covered in some old mud, but I ended up horse trading for this divorce transfer case. It's all cast iron. I'm excited to put that in it one day. I actually intended on putting the Dana 60 in before I rebuilt it this time, but I ain't gonna make it. Not between the cost of the axle and the front end brackets. But now maybe we can. Wear out a few more sets of tires on this front end. It's been driving really good. Those heavier rate springs, I should have put them on a long time ago. It rides way better. You don't realize how bad the springs get over time until you put a new set on it. If you got a truck like this, 30 years old, go ahead and put springs on it all the way around. I guarantee you'll be surprised. Shocks too. I ain't the best person to follow on how to do something, but you sure can do these in the backyard. It'd be a whole lot easier if you had a hydraulic press or a ball joint press. You'd be better off, but I've done it without them, and I've done it with them. Just with the circumstances, we had to do it like that this go around. I think we're gonna wrap this one up. I'm ready to finish this bed, so we need to get started on that soon.